I I gotta ask, when you see, like, after all the, because we've watched so much great stuff from JCP over the years. When you see this episode, and it's okay,
Yeah, it is okay.
but it's not great.
Yeah.
And with the benefit of hindsight, this is the last one that airs on the Crockett Watch, and then after this, it's Ted Turner's deal. We know what that would become, and you would have some dark days in WCW, but then you would have some just, I mean, real high watermarks, much larger than Crockett ever did. Goldberg in the Georgia Dome and
Yeah.
Starrcade '97, and so many of these iconic moments. Hulk
Yeah.
Hogan becoming a bad guy, and you got to be a part of all that. But do you have any sort of bittersweet feelings watching this, knowing, that the wrestling you grew up on was always, Crockett influence, and that influence is sort of coming to an end here. Any of that with
Yeah,
you?
I
Ray?
have. I don't know if it's bittersweet or not. I have feelings that the only thing I can think of when I'm watching this is that the Jim Herd era is about to begin,
Yeah,
and that sucked.
yeah,
It really did. I know you did an interview with him, and it's I guess it's still available in the
yeah.
archives on ad-free shows. But you sent it to me to watch,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you remember what I said. I said I watched about 3 minutes of it, and I said, "Yeah, it's enough."
Mm.
I didn't. I have such bad feelings about the Jim Hurt era, and I think it has to do with the end of the Crockett's, that coming to an end, and my feelings about that, my feelings about TBS back then, and my feelings that when I when I came back to uh, when I came back to WCW and left the WWF in 1990, that I had made such a bad mistake,
Mm.
and that was a terrible time in my life. Terrible time. The spring of 1990, terrible time. Kevin's got his bathrobe on. That's what it is. He probably took that from the Marriott. And not only that, this guy Randy Hogan looks like Hulk Hogan, but he knows how they spell their name Hogen on the
Mm.
font. Yeah,
Just a little different.
a little different. But he tried to look like Hulk Hogan. This kid did, and something that Rotunda just said made Teddy Long laugh.
Hey, I forgot to tell you this. I spent a lot of time with my mother-in-law over the
Yeah,
last week or so,
yeah,
and she'll just want to pick my brain about wrestling stuff every now and again. And so she'll just hit me with just random stuff. Like we're driving to the beach. It's just she and I in the car. And just out of nowhere, she says, "Is Greg Valentine still alive?" So I get stuff like that all the time.
right.
But the other night, uh, as you and I are recording this last night, I was watching Monday Night Raw, and Cody Rhodes comes out to do a promo, and she says, "Is this live?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she says, "How did his brother die?" And I go, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, his brother died." I go, "No, ma'am, his brother did not die." She goes, "But he was a wrestler." I go, "Yeah, he still is. His name's Dustin." Okay. Well, whose brother died? And I'm thinking, man, what did she misconstrue
Well, I know
in this?
immediately.
And so then I was like, I got it.
Yeah.
You're saying Blackjack's grandson, he passed away. And she goes, "Did he?" And I go, "He did earlier this year. Barry Windham's nephew, Mike Rotunda's son."
Yeah.
She goes, "That may have been who I was thinking about." Who did you think she was thinking about?
She thought that was Dusty Rhodes' brother.
She thought,
Cody was.
I see.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be wild?
Uh,
So she's,
us senior citizens
mhm,
have a tendency to think that we're younger than we are.
I understand.
Okay.
Well, she grew up, with Rick, of course, and he used to do a lot, palling around with Dusty Rhodes when he was first breaking into wrestling. And once Rick was more established, two doors down was Blackjack, so they were a big part of each other's lives, and she remembers all that.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought, okay, who would she have been around? If
Yeah.
it was a brother, and the only thing I could come up with was Blackjack.
Right. I just think she thought Cody and Dusty were brothers. I don't know.
Mm.
So, hey, we've been talking around this, but this is an angle where the varsity club turned on Rick Steiner.
That's exactly right. Yes,
Yeah.
he's out. Dr. Death is in.
Right.
For at this point, it feels like years. Rick Steiner and Mike Rotundo and Kevin Sullivan have been the varsity club, but now that we've bought out Bill Watts a year prior, more than a year prior at this point, we've got Dr. Death in the mix, so we add him to part of the presentation, and Steiner is out, and that means it won't be too terribly long, and we're going to meet the Steiner brothers, my absolute favorite tag team as a kid. I mean, I just thought Rick and Scott were the coolest tag team there ever was. And then to know, I guess there was a Super Brawl a few years after this that as a kid to me was like, man, does it get any better than this? Lex Luger and Sting against the Steiner brothers.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, and I can't put my finger on why, because I like all the individuals. Like I think the world of Kevin Sullivan, but this varsity club, I could never really get into. How about you, Tony? Were you with it?
No, I mean, I really loved Kevin Sullivan, but Rotunda and Dr. Death, great performers, but they were not the greatest talkers in the world.
Right.
And I think that hurt them. Here's an
Well,
example.
speaking of talkers, here we go. Kevin Sullivan's got a number on the socks. Here we go. Hey, Tony, we're back on the program here. We're going to be coming back from a break. I hope we see more Rick Steiner. We are in season 4, episode 47, November 19th, 1988. I think we got a Paulie Dangerously promo coming up, a Road Warrior Hawk promo, lots of fun stuff here at 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 49 seconds of a runtime. But we are presently paused at 52:50. So we'll get going here at 52:50 and 3, 2, 1, play.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Ross with Paul E. Dangerously.
Jim Cornette comes out here and he says, beautiful Bobby's gonna fly, huh? He said that Sweet Stan's gonna throw a few kicks, huh? He said that he's gonna swing the tennis racket. You know what I say, Jim Cornette? I say your mama. You understand? You never had a tag team that's as good as the one I got. You never had it, you never will, and you certainly don't have one now. Ladies and gentlemen, the only team truly deserving of the name, Loverboy Dennis and Ravishing Randy, the Midnight Express!
Now, what do you think of the original Midnight Express? Dennis Condrey, Randy Rose. Obviously, I like the storyline, Midnight Express versus Midnight Express, but just as a standalone tag team, I got to admit, I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it. I didn't like it as well. I got to think the secret sauce was Bobby Eaton.
Of course it was. And not only that, when you thought Midnight Express, who'd you think about? Jim Cornette. And this is not a knock on Paul Lee, because I know that I've knocked on his weight long enough. But it's just, I just don't, whoops, there's my phone. I just don't think that it worked without Bobby and Cornette.